Welcome back to Wrestling Talk. I'm your host, Alexis Carrillo, and it's a pleasure to have you all join me on today's edition, March 11th, 2022 of Wrestling Talk, because we have a lot of things to catch up on. Because just this past weekend, we had Revolution, AEW's very first pay-per-view event of 2022, and it left a lot of questions that have yet to be answered. And I want to start off with the fact that most of my predictions, obviously, that you can go back and check on my YouTube channel, on this very YouTube channel, if you're subscribed to it, go ahead and subscribe. But you can check my predictions, and I pretty much predicted that Adam Cole was going to walk out still AEW World Champion, and he did just that. He beat Lance Archer, which, he beat the Murder Hawk Monster. He beat one of the top stars in AEW, and like I said, as soon as the Murder Hawk Monster was pronounced or was announced to be the number one contender, the AEW World Championship, I said it here, folks, he was not going to win the world title. He was not going to beat Hangman Adam Page. Because Revolution just wasn't the moment to take the championship off of Hangman Page. And I was proven right on that fact. The issue now is, what does AEW do with somebody like Lance Archer? Somebody who's had multiple world title shots. Somebody who's had a TN title shot in the past as well. But every single time he gets to that big match, he seems to fail. He doesn't seem to get the job done. And that's become a recurring issue for AEW and for Lance Archer. And that is something that they have to work on, which is going to be very hard because, like I said, like I've always said in these shows, AEW has way too much talent to even think about what they know what to do with, especially with the recent addition of somebody like Swerve Strickland and debuting Jeff Hardy. AEW keeps adding up talent. They did so this past Wednesday night on Dynamite. Let's see what are AEW's next steps. What's Tony Khan going to be up to in this case? But one of the things that I wasn't correct about at Revolution was the fact that MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, was going to go ahead and beat CM Punk in that dog collar match in the pay-per-view. I sat here weeks ago, and I said, and I pledged, and I hoped that CM Punk would be one of those stars to never, ever beat MJF in AEW. Didn't matter how hard he tried. Didn't matter in what kind of match, what kind of stipulation. CM Punk was always going to be an opponent that MJF always bested. And Tony Khan had a different point of view on that. He gave CM Punk the win. And in my view, in hindsight, you could talk about anything. You really can. But in my view, that was a mistake. Because you want to talk about how wrestling fans hate the fact that WWE has 50-50 booking. One win for the heel, one win for the face, and then just see what happens. You don't really push anybody upward, you don't push anyone downward with that 50-50 kind of booking, and that's exactly what they did with MJF and CM Punk right here. MJF screwed CM Punk at Dynamite in Chicago, Illinois. Not once, but twice. And then CM Punk got his revenge. He got redemption. He got his vengeance at the pay-per-view. He beat MJF. So the real question here is this over? Is it all said and done? Will we see a third rubber match like the old times, like it should be when 50-50 booking happens? Will we see that? And all I gotta say is, after CM Punk beating MJF in this dog collar match, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in watching a third match between these two. I'm not. They had their rivalry, they had their feud, it was interesting, it was entertaining as hell. And yes, I know it sounds like I'm just bitching and moaning because I didn't get my way. I didn't get the fact that MJF was not going to beat CM Punk. Rather, the opposite, that CM Punk was never going to beat MJF. But, I had a whole booking plan laid out, and now MJF is kind of hurt. It's on a down low, on a downward spiral in his what should be his upcoming world title match against Hangman Page at Double or Nothing. So we'll see what Tony Khan and AEW does right there. But like I said, I think they made a big mistake by giving CM Punk a win that he did not need. There is no one in today's internet wrestling community or in the wrestling world today that would have been upset by not having CM Punk walk out with the victory. If CM Punk lost to MJF, everybody would have been fine with that. They would have. It doesn't hurt CM Punk. CM Punk is a legend, much like John Cena, much like Randy Orton. If they lose a match, it makes whoever beats them that much better, that much bigger. And these stars, they're already self-made. They're household names. Sure, he can't beat MJF, but you put him up against Jon Moxley. You put him up against Bryan Danielson. You put him up against Wardlow or Sammy Guevara or any of these young up-and-comers that you got in AEW, and it's still going to be a high-profile match just because it's CM Punk. So once again, I got to say, bad call on AEW's part. I'm sorry, but that's just what I think. We'll see how it plays out in the future. We saw Wardlow walk out of the Face of the Revolution ladder match. He grabbed that brass ring, and now he gets a shot at the TNT title. He gets a shot at the TNT champion, which at the time of the Revolution pay-per-view, his name was Sammy Guevara. But as you just saw this past Wednesday, and as you're going to see tonight on Rampage, new TNT champion Scorpio Sky will have some words. Choice words, as a matter of fact, since he's aligned himself with Ethan Page and Dan Lambert and America's Top Team. So, that wasn't at all a bad move. In fact, it was a genius move. Because now, with the events of Revolution and with the events of Dynamite, you're setting up Wardlow for success like never before. Because first, you're setting up Wardlow for a title match against an opponent that has an entire team, literally an entirely American top team behind him, which Wardlow can destroy with his Power Bomb Symphony and reach that TNT championship and become the champion that we all know he will eventually, no doubt, undoubtedly, inevitably be at one point in his career. But not only that, his words on Dynamite, his actions on Dynamite, saying that things need to change, and he left MJF's ring on the apron and he walked away. It seemed like Wardlow was quitting or taking a break from the Pinnacle and taking a break from being MJF's main muscle and bodyguard. Well, there you go. You got Wardlow primed as a top babyface to go up against two of the baddest groups currently in AEW. And whenever that happens, whenever a badass like Wardlow has to go up against a group of people, it spells big money for whichever company it is. Because that just gets the fans to rally behind the underdog badass that they know can take care of business, that they know can powerbomb the shit out of every single member of those teams. But it's all a numbers game. They're going to eventually get the best of Wardlow. And we'll just have to wait and see. All I can say is Scorpio Sky's days as TNT champion are numbered. Because the night that Wardlow chooses to have his TNT title match, he will absolutely destroy Scorpio Sky. And the only exception, the only way I see that not taking place is if, like I said, the Pinnacle and MJF take this a little bit too personally, take his actions on Dynamite a little bit too personally, and cost him that title match, and then Wardlow gets to go up against the Pinnacle. Either way, the Powerbomb Symphony, it's set to continue very, very, very soon. And the final point I want to touch upon from Revolution is, yes, another part where I was wrong. I was wrong that Thunder Rosa was going to walk out the AEW Women's World Champion. She did not. She, had to deal with a lot of interference from Britt Baker's allies, and that ended up costing her the match. That ended up costing her the championship. But the end result, no matter what, it's still going to be the same. The end result is still going to be Thunder Rosa becoming AEW Women's World Champion. And she's going to become AEW Women's World Champion by dethroning Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, no matter what. And that's going to happen. More often than not, I give you a 99.9% chance it's going to happen at St. Patrick's Day edition of Dynamite. Which, it's kind of poetic, just because just a year prior they had that amazing lights out battle where they both ended up with crimson faces for masks, with crimson masks for face, excuse me. But this time Thunder Rosa walks out the Women's World Champion, and then eventually you set up Britt Baker for a babyface turn because fans want to cheer her. The fans love Britt Baker, but it's Thunder Rosa's time. And that's all I got to say about that. I was wrong, but I was only wrong in the timing because the end result will be the same. Thunder Rosa will soon become AEW Women's World Champion. Those were the main highlights from Revolution, from Dynamite this past Wednesday night, at least in my point of view. Not a lot of other things happened. I mean, Jeff Hardy did make his debut on Dynamite, but that's something we covered a few weeks ago. He wouldn't make his debut. Now he's a part of a tag team with Matt Hardy, and we get to see that run that we got in the WWF, that we got in the WWE, that we got in TNA, that we got in Ring of Honor, that we got in WWE, and now we are getting it in AEW. And to be honest with you, no matter how hard they try, they are never, ever, ever going to be the greatest tag team of all time. That moniker, ladies and gentlemen, is reserved for a team known as the Dudleys. Team 3D. They won tag titles everywhere they were ever a part of. And AEW came after them. So what? Big whoop. Jeff Hardy, the most I can say that I'm interested about your AEW run is you encountering CM Punk once again for the first time in almost 13 years. 13 years ago, CM Punk and Jeff Hardy had one of the greatest rivalries, one of the greatest feuds, not only in SmackDown history, but in WWE history, in my humble point of view. And if they reignite that rivalry in WWE, it would take CM Punk turning heel, though, which I'm not opposed to. But it would be something that I am highly interested in. Just because that's good shit. That's good television that they're about to put on TV. But for right now, Jeff Hardy's going to be possibly future tag team champion in AEW along with his brother, which... Last thing I'm going to say about Jeff Hardy. I love Jeff Hardy. You know how I feel about him. You know what kind of comments I've had about Jeff Hardy in the past. But if the Hardy Boys or the Hardys end up winning the AEW World Tag Team Championships before Proud and Powerful do, I'm going to be pissed. So with that said, those were my thoughts on Revolution. Those were my thoughts on Dynamite. We got a lot to look forward to tonight on Rampage. So leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions on the comment section below. What do you think about Revolution? What do you think about what happened on Dynamite? What do you think is going to happen tonight on Rampage? Leave them in the comment section below. And it's time to move on to WWE because WrestleMania is right around the corner. We're just about 3 weeks away from the biggest show of them all. We're 3 weeks away from the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania 38 in Dallas, Texas. And the WrestleMania card was starting to look a bit lackluster on the men's side of things. I mean, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, yes, it is the best built story for these two men up until now. But it's something that we've seen time again in WWE. Am I excited for it? To be honest, I'm more excited about once we get that match over with. Let's see what happens on Raw and SmackDown with one unified world champion. That's really what's exciting me about that match. We got Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville. All I can say is I'm happy that's not for the Intercontinental Championship. Thank you, Ricochet. We got Finn Balor versus Damian Priest for the United States Championship. Damian Priest became a heel. Tricky move on WWE's part because they couldn't get him over as a babyface. Let's see if Finn Balor can get him over as a top bad guy. Cody Rhodes, there's no mention. There's no appearance from him scheduled in WWE anytime soon. At least that's what's being reported. So we'll just have to wait up and see what goes on with that. We got Kevin Owens having a KO show with special guest Stone Cold Steve Austin, which I do hope is not an actual match between these two, because Stone Cold Steve Austin got the perfect bookend to his career, losing to The Rock at WrestleMania 19. I mean, can't get any better than that. And as you can see, the sun's in my face right now, so I'm doing. You can obviously tell I'm doing this a little bit later than I usually do. So yeah. Not a fan of that. But the match I'm talking about right now is the best step forward that WWE could have taken. And I'm talking about the Rated R Superstar turning heel, beating the living crap out of the Phenomenal One, AJ Styles, and setting up another dream match for WrestleMania. A match that fans have been wanting to go down ever since Edge made his return to WWE in the 2020 Royal Rumble. And what did you know? The first man Edge speared, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am, correct me on the comment section below. Edge came back into the Rumble, and the first man he speared was AJ Styles. And I love the way he put it a week ago in his promo. Edge was happy. He was ecstatic. He was, out of his mind happy to have AJ Styles be the one to challenge him for WrestleMania. Have that match. A match that he's always wanted. A match that every single fan out there has always wanted. But he said it best when he said he wants a bulldog. He doesn't want the tag team specialist or the former tag team champion with Omos. No, he wants the former world champion, the man who said that SmackDown was a house that he built, the man that went toe-to-toe with Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series and not only survived, but gave the Beast a run for his money. That's the guy that Edge wanted. And when he didn't get the response he wanted from AJ Styles just got pissed off. He was questioning whether or not Edge was being serious. Well, Edge decided to take his opportunity and strike and make sure that AJ Styles' rage came out in a blaze of glory, and there was nothing that was gonna stop them from having this match at WrestleMania. Edge gave him 2 concertos. Very, very startling, as a matter of fact. When I saw that, wow. It really ignited the flames of this rivalry. And I gotta say this, we're gonna have a great match between these two at WrestleMania. We are. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But if you think that this feud, that this rivalry is gonna end at WrestleMania after what Edge has already done to AJ Styles, you are mistaken. You're very mistaken. Because at WrestleMania, this will only get started. And I'm hoping AJ Styles comes out on top and he's able to get back into the world title picture, because that's how damn talented and that's how damn good he is. If you ask me, I don't want another Edge world title run. I don't think he needs it. I honestly don't think he needs it. Shawn Michaels worked over 7 years without being a world champion before he retired. Did he need the world title? No, Absolutely not. I think Edge is in the same boat. He does not need the World Championship to be a top-level star. I've said it in the past too, that Lesnar versus Reigns match did not need both titles on the line. But as you can always say, and as you can always tell, most of the times, sometimes, most of the times, I'm wrong. So with that said, what do you think about AJ Styles versus Edge at WrestleMania 38? Is that the match you're most looking forward to at the show of shows? Or do you have a different pick? Were you at all disappointed with AJ Styles being named Edge's opponent at WrestleMania? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comment section below. Speaking of WrestleMania, we've got to decide, well, not we, WWE has to decide which match is going to main event night one of WrestleMania 38 in Dallas. And you've only got two options. And they're both the women's title matches. And I realized this the moment that they announced both of these matches to take place the exact same night. But it was also fantastic planning on their part, which I will get to in a few seconds. You see, the thing with this night one dilemma for a main event between these two matches is most of WrestleMania 38 is just a pit stop for WrestleMania 39 next year, right here in Los Angeles, California. So, whichever match between these two goes on last is the main event of WrestleMania Saturday, or night one of WrestleMania 38, whichever you want to call it. That is going to add fuel to the fire of the match that WWE is clearly building to for that event 1 year plus from now. Because 1 year plus from now, at WrestleMania 39, if it all plays out the way they want to, no injuries, knock on wood, then the main women's title match at that year's WrestleMania is going to be, it doesn't really matter who the champion is, but I would prefer that the champion be Rowdy Ronda Rousey, defending her title against a now babyface Becky Lynch. The man is back. She's a babyface. The fans have wanted to cheer her ever since she came back. She's just been a fantastic heel on how to get fans to hate her. Love her for that. But that's the match everybody wants, and that's the match that WWE is building to for LA. Now, with that said, if you ask me which match should go on last, which of these two deserve to go on last at WrestleMania, based off of pure interest, based on which match is going to be better, not better suited, but better for the main event, I would have to go with Becky Lynch defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Bianca Belair. I think that's a match that everybody wants to see main event night one of WrestleMania. Will we get it? Hell no. Hell no. That's not going to be the main event of WrestleMania. You know why? Because on the other side, you got one of the biggest part-timers who's back in Ronda Rousey. And right across from her in that match is the most decorated woman in WWE history, Charlotte Flair. So if I had to put money on it, Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey is going to main event WrestleMania Saturday. They're going to be the main event of night one. Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair deserve to be the main event of that night. That's what fans, and I'm sure most of you agree, that's what fans want. But we'll just have to wait and see. All I can say is it's going to be Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. That's it. Those are my thoughts. Those are my predictions. I think that's the match that's going to main event night one of WrestleMania. Do you disagree? Do you think, other than these two women's matches, do you think there's a chance anybody else, any other match can main event that WrestleMania? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comments section below. And it's been a while since I talked about NXT. And it's not because of lack of talent. It's not because I don't watch it. I certainly do. It's a great show, but I've always considered it to be developmental. Always. And that's never changed. Not once. Not when AEW decided to go up against them for the Wednesday Night Wars. Not when WWE put NXT majorly over at the 2019 Survivor Series event. No. NXT, ever since I started watching in January of 2018, in my mind, I've always said, it is nothing but developmental. It's fantastic wrestling. At one point, it was the best wrestling out there that WWE was producing. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, but, it's not the main roster. They didn't tour. It's not the big company. It's the form system for the big league that is WWE. And the reason I haven't really talked about NXT is because they haven't really given us too many headlines. I mean, Carmelo Hayes, he don't miss. He makes every single segment he's in entertaining, awesome, must watch. This man, Carmelo Hayes, can carry himself like a star. But other than that, he's had his normal run-of-the-mill matches where he's faced off against tough opponents, but overall, it's Carmelo Hayes, the North American champion. We'll see what happens down the line. But the big headline coming out of NXT this week is the fact that veteran WWE superstar and current member of the Monday Night Raw roster, Dolph Ziggler, beat Tommaso Ciampa and Braun Breaker in a triple threat match this past Tuesday night to become NXT champion. Dolph Ziggler, a main roster superstar, became NXT champion. And I know a lot of fans out there, a lot of fans in the IWC have been saying that this was a mistake. You cost Braun Breaker a long title reign in his very first title reign, and you did that by having a main roster star, defeat one of the biggest up-and-coming superstars in WWE today. And perhaps they're right. They might be part right. Because a man with the talent and the look and the drive and the passion of a Braun Breaker does not get slowed down this easily. As a matter of fact, him losing to Dolph Ziggler is a master move from whoever is running NXT's booking department. Because Braun Breaker can carry himself like a star in NXT. He's proven that. But he's also made a few mistakes. He has timing issues. He has promo issues. He's young. He hasn't been doing this for a year. Not even. So he still has to learn. But what he's proven to us is that he can roll with the punches. He can adapt. And he only gets better week after week after week. And if you put him up against a guy like Dolph Ziggler, a man, a wrestler, a performer that many in WWE regard to be one of the best, not only performers on the main roster, but one of the best teachers for anyone looking to get into this business, then it's a win-win. And there are rumors out there that WWE and Vince McMahon are planning, conniving on putting Braun Breaker, on fast-tracking Braun Breaker into the main roster. And if that is indeed the plan, if those rumors are true, then there's no better way to get him ready for the big time, get him ready for the main event slot, than to have him go up against Dolph Ziggler. He's just that damn good as a teacher, in the ring, on the mic, everywhere he goes. He has had injury issues which prevented him from becoming a top superstar in WWE. But other than that, Braun Breaker wasn't the one pinned. He still has his championship rematch, I believe, and I'm pretty sure it's going to happen at Stand and Deliver during WrestleMania weekend. So what the hell are we talking about? What the hell are we talking about? Overall, Braun Breaker's going to come to the main roster when he's ready, when WWE has something for him. And like I said, he's a fantastic specimen. He's entertaining as hell, and I can't wait to see him go up against some of the main stars on Raw and SmackDown. But for now, he keeps building up his pedigree in NXT, and eventually, he's going to be a full-time main roster superstar. But I know a lot of you fans disagree with me. I know a lot of you fans think that having him lose to Dolph Ziggler, having him lose the NXT Championship in that triple threat match at NXT, I believe Roadblock it was called, was a mistake. So if you do, leave it in the comment section below. Leave me a reason why you think it was a mistake. I'm always interested in seeing your theories on this entire part. But overall, Braun Breaker is going to be a star no matter what, as long as he doesn't get fired or released, of course. But he's going to be a major star no matter what. So go ahead and leave him in the comment section below. And we got Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling, one of the hottest products out there, no doubt. They put on a hell of a show. They have some issues in the marketing department because they just announce matches here and there without building up properly to them, without actually promoting them on social media the way that they should be promoted so that there is any kind of awareness for the product. But overall, Impact Wrestling has been doing quite a great job in the entertainment value department. As a matter of fact, Sacrifice happened this past weekend as well. And while it wasn't as good as a show as No Surrender, and it didn't give us that much headlines, it gave us one major twist that, to be honest, I wasn't expecting, and I'm sure a lot of you weren't expecting. And that is that the Walking Weapon was back. He was back after announcing on Twitter, on social media, that he had to leave Impact Wrestling because his contract wasn't renewed. And because his contract wasn't renewed, his work visa was denied, and he had to go back to Canada. Hell, Josh Alexander even posted a picture of him in some kind of labor uniform going back to work. And every single fan out there that saw that post shed a tear and responded that that was not his place. And that didn't backfire on WWE. On Impact Wrestling, No, because this past Saturday, this past weekend, at Sacrifice, Josh Alexander made his return to Impact Wrestling. And not only that, he announced he had signed a multi-year contract with Impact Wrestling. He was here to stay. Fantastic. Not only that, Josh Alexander made his return by laying out the current Impact World Champion, Moose. The same man that laid him out in the main event of the biggest pay-per-view event of the year. In the main event of the biggest moment of Josh Alexander's career up to that point. Josh Alexander was celebrating with his family. He was the brand new Impact World Champion, the brand new face of the company, and Moose attacked him, called his shot, pinned him 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring with his family watching in that very corner. Yes, his family was still in the squared circle. So there are a lot of storylines to insert into this feud. There's a lot of story to draw from between these two men. So all I can say is, Josh Alexander, I couldn't be happier that you're back at Impact Wrestling. I couldn't be happier to know that you are going to be the man to challenge Moose for the Impact World Championship at Rebellion in Poughkeepsie, New York. Poughkeepsie, New York. That is the money match that Impact Wrestling wants and needs, and they're getting it now because it is the right call. Because ever since Scott D'Amore took over Impact Wrestling, they have been on fire in the ring and management-wise. And even though fans have trouble finding them on Access TV, and even though fans still want to throw shade at the company formerly known as Total Nonstop Action, there's no denying that if you watch an Impact Wrestling show, whichever show that may be currently, you're going to get a great night of professional wrestling. And to borrow from a former Impact World Champion, that's not an insult. That is just a fact of life. So Josh Alexander versus Moose at Rebellion, the tail end of April. Exciting as hell. Perfect move. Perfect play from Scott D'Amore and Impact Wrestling. So all I have to ask right now is, were you fooled by Josh Alexander leaving the company and then returning and thinking that Josh Alexander was gone forever, just like I did at one point? And I can admit it, and you can watch the rest. You can watch my statement on that exact moment when Josh Alexander was released. Or do you think they could have gone a different way for their big pay-per-view event, and Josh Alexander should have just tried his luck at AEW or at WWE? Leave your thoughts, comments, and predictions in the comment section below. And with that said, that's it for today's episode of Wrestling Talk. Friday, March 11th, we got SmackDown, we got Rampage, we've got a hell of a night of wrestling to look forward to. We got Monday Night Raw this upcoming Monday, yet another stop on the road to WrestleMania. So if you're here as a wrestling fan, if you're here to enjoy wrestling the way everybody wants to, then you shouldn't be able to complain, because you got fantastic shows out there. So with that said, I've been Alexis Carrillo. This was Wrestling Talk for today. See you next time.